This is a holocron of Jedi apparel. Jedi apparel was the term given to the attire of members of both the Old and New Jedi Orders. Traditionally, Jedi wore clothes that benefited their monastic lifestyle, but variations of this theme were common, particularly after the rebirth of the Order after the Galactic Civil War. The attire usually was made in shades of brown or sometimes black, with a utility belt for various purposes, but also as a place on which to clip a lightsaber. Boots, loose-fitting pants, and a cloak typically accompany the garment. As these garments were not usually elaborate, the outfit mirrored their attachment-free philosophy as well as showing their requirement to live almost devoid of luxury and also their devotion to service. The apparel was also allowed great freedom of movement. The rough material proved useful on survival missions as it was strong enough to show some resistance to tearing and fraying, as well as putting the wearer through some discomfort to help sharpen their focus. It has long been hypothesized that the first known Jedi came from Tatooine, and as such wore loosely fitting robes made of low quality fabric. This gives insight to the current state of the modern Jedi apparel. Since he came from a humble beginning, this Jedi did not think twice about his outfit, and all Jedi that came after him followed in his image. This eventually became vital in a long-standing tradition of new Jedi being sworn to a life of modesty and humility. Jedi were raised their entire lives without possession except for a lightsaber. Since they were given what they needed and their desires were controlled, most Jedi wore traditional yet simple Jedi robes, not feeling the need for fancy and outstanding outfits. The simplicity of the Jedi apparel was in many ways symbolic of the selfless compassion that characterized the Jedi Order. Padawans wore plain robes similar to those worn by Jedi Knights. As they progressed throughout their career and learned more of the heritage that they left behind as children, some Jedi would customize their given garments to show a reflection of pride and gratitude of their home worlds, while others would wear traditional costumes of their homeworlds altogether, but kept in the traditional color scheme of the Jedi apparel. Some Jedi of the Old Order did not wear traditional Jedi robes, but preferred other types of attire for various reasons. For example, some Jedi such as Thon, Oro, Nerozak, and Ikrit did not wear any form of garment at all. Others had world views that were different from that of the mainstream Jedi, which would be reflected in their atypical choice of garment. Examples include the Dark Woman, who wore a black bodysuit, Dorn Tevers, who chose to wear traditional civilian Corellian-style garments, and the ancient Jedi Sheila Nora, who wore a black and red full-body battlesuit during the Great Hunt. During times of great conflict, Jedi would sometimes require the use of battle armor. Armor-clad Jedi were a common sight on the battlefield of the new Sith Wars, while the ancient Jedi of the era of the old Sith Wars would often wear parts of armor to protect certain areas of their bodies, as would many Jedi of the new Sith War eras. Shoulder guards were especially common among the ranks of the ancient Jedi. Jedi Pearl was designed to be light and comfortable, given they wear as much freedom of movement and ability to use the Force as possible. However, the freedom provided by the Jedi armor were very limited compared to those provided by traditional Jedi robes. In the ancient wars between the Jedi and the Sith, the battlefields were often so packed with the combatants that moving about freely on the battlefield would have been difficult even without armor. This would result in immobile and poorly protected combatants, which may be why the Jedi of these eras chose to prioritize armor to mobility. Throughout the new Sith Wars, Jedi would customize and modify their armor, while some preferred not to wear any armor at all. After the Rusian Reformation, the Jedi disposed of using battle armor altogether. Around 1,000 years later, the Clone Wars broke out. On certain occasions, Jedi fighting side by side with clone troopers would wear modified clone trooper armor or bits and pieces of it. General Obi-Wan Kenobi wore clone trooper armor in the Battle of Munilis to protect himself from the lances of Durg and his army of swoop-riding assassin droids. After the Clone Wars, those few Jedi that survived Order 66 went into hiding as not to fall victim to the Great Jedi Purge. Some of those ceased to wear traditional Jedi garments and start wearing battle armor so as not to give themselves away as Jedi. Voltor Swan, for instance, started wearing battle armor before she fell victim to the Jedi Purge. Other Jedi, like Drake Lugan, would supplement their robes with bits and pieces of clone trooper armor. By the time of the Battle of Naboo, Jedi training suits were highly complex pieces of clothing that would protect the wearer by cushioning blows in hand-to-hand combat and absorbing light blaster fire. That type of gear, however, slightly hampered its wearer's movement, which is why it was never worn in real combat situations. Inside the belt and gauntlets, there were weights that were removed during missions, thus giving the wearer great physical ability than he or she were used to. In some cases, those suits were completed by a WJ-880 blinding helmet, which were used to give an unclouded vision of the Force in battle. The famous Jedi Obi-Wan Kenobi and his master Qui-Gon Jinn were known to have worn such training suits. In Luke Skywalker's new Jedi Order, Jedi wore various clothing including simple everyday clothing, elaborate traditional clothing, military-based clothing, and pilot jumpsuits. Compared to the Old Order, where Jedi departing from the new garb were rare, the Jedi of Luke Skywalker's Jedi Order displayed many great variations in their apparel. One reason was probably that most members of the first generation of new Jedi were already adults when they were introduced into the way of the Jedi, and so had already developed tastes and preferences for clothing in terms of both aesthetic and functionality. However, the new Jedi did wear traditional robes for formal occasions and Jedi gatherings, such as the Conclave on Ossus. While some swore to the traditional apparel of the Old Order, or culturally based variations of it, many wore whatever clothes they felt more comfortable in. Luke himself wore a black version of the Jedi robes, with tighter fitting sleeves and pants to allow more functionality. Some Jedi of the New Order, such as Kip Doran, sometimes wore so-called Jedi cloaks with a New Republic emblem on them. These cloaks were seen during the Leviathan Crisis and may have been water propellant, protecting the Jedi from rain and similar weather conditions. In addition to these cloaks, the Jedi were also equipped with standard glow rods, grappling hooks, and tough boots. On special occasions or celebrations, the Jedi would wear more brightly colored robes, such as those worn at the wedding of Luke Skywalker and Mara Jade. Many of the new Jedi were accomplished pilots, and many were also trained commandos. As a result, military-style jumpsuits became common among the new Jedi, flexible enough to accommodate their unique fighting style and highly practical in the combat scenarios in which they increasingly served. However, some Jedi pilots and commandos eschewed jumpsuits. Jaden Korr, for instance, who traveled primarily in a Z-95 Headhunter, did not wear jumpsuit on his missions, while in the early years of the Yuzhang-Vong War, Jedi of Crip Doran's faction symbolized their loyalties by adapting Jedi robes of traditional cut, but dark in color. While the fighter aces of the old Jedi Order would often wear jumpsuits on missions, The widespread use of combat jumpsuits in the New Order probably reflected the military background of Luke Skywalker and many of the other knights. By around 22 ABY, jumpsuits also seem to have been standard issue for the young students of the Jedi Academy, and by the time of the Yuuzhan War, Jedi serving in the front line wore olive green jumpsuits, reinforced with light armor. Jumpsuits did contain the notion of simplicity and the functionality associated with the Jedi robes of the Old Order, in the sense that jumpsuits were not unnecessarily elaborate, and they provided maximal mobility on ground-based missions, in addition to obvious advantages for starfighting piloting. Moreover, jumpsuits were often provided with numerous pockets, making it easier for the Jedi to carry various objects and tools. Thank you for viewing this holocron of Jedi apparel.